we got Brooke Byrne back on the program. We're going to wrap things up here. Got a lot of good information from Luke. Luke, by the way, a lot more optimistic than I was expecting him to be. I was really expecting him to his defense, he's been mostly right with the cynical Husker takes as of late. So I was expecting him to be like, all right, 4 wins for Matt Rule's first year. They're going to lose to Minnesota. They're going to beat Colorado, and then it's going to be a struggle to get through. But he was awfully optimistic. I was surprised by that. So if we got Luke on the bandwagon, I think we're smooth sailing from there. But up next, we'll kind of talk about the Husker season. Week 1 getting underway. Minnesota, the Golden Gophers, PJ Fleck, all on the schedule today. So I figured we'd go through week by week and see exactly where we kind of fall on the Huskers this year, as far as, on a week by week basis. Because I feel like it's easy to look at them and be like, oh, well, they feel like a 7-win team. They feel like a 6-win team. But when you kind of go week by week and see how the schedule plays out, where they get home games, where they have to go on the road to, I think that adds a lot more context to it that I think will give us a little bit better of a experience here. So here we are. We'll get rid of the QR code here. She looks pretty face. So week 1, first of all, Minnesota. So Tyler and I already gave our picks here, both here for Nebraska. Brooke Byrne, what do you think? Do they start off 1-0?
As much as I would love to see us start off 1-0, and I would happy to be wrong about this, I'm going to go, we lose a close one.
All right. Well, we just killed the vibes.
Sorry.
That was a bummer. But do they at least pick up a win in week 2? The Golden Buffaloes hosting Nebraska here. Colorado.
Time. Okay, sorry. Something happened to your audio there for a second, but you were good now. Sorry.
Yeah, I accidentally hit the Siri button, and so we're just recording everything. But the next week at Colorado, rivalry game, haven't beaten Colorado in like 4,000 days or something. Brooke, I'll ask you first, trying to squeeze some vibes out of you. Is this where Nebraska gets back on track?
Absolutely. I'm not a big believer in year 1 for Deion Sanders. I think this is a game where Nebraska should and will take care of business.
Absolutely. I think so too. I think it's so exciting though the way that the schedule fell, because I feel like the last time these two teams played, there's a lot of optimism on both ends, of course, with Mel Tucker and Coach Mack in Colorado, and then of course the first couple of years under Scott Frost. Then everything fell apart for both of these programs very quickly afterwards. And now the buzz is back. We're back, baby. And of course, who do we see on the schedule week 2 yet again? Golden Buffaloes. But I think you're right. I think Nebraska's just in a little bit better of a starting place than where Colorado is. I think next year we'll be a little bit tighter, but I think Nebraska wins comfortably.
I agree. I don't think getting in all these new players is going to be tough for Colorado. I mean, they're going to probably be a good team in the near future, but I think this year they're going to have some hurdles to get over, and I don't think they do that week 2 against Nebraska.
By the way, you're going to see a lot of people on Twitter trashing them for only winning 3 or 4 games, but let's not forget that they were the worst team in football last year. They lost every game by 30-plus points, or at an average of 30 points per game. And if they win 3 games, that's a remarkable step. So don't let Twitter fool you. I'm already mad about it. I'm sorry. Northern Illinois feels like I feel like even when Nebraska was winning pretty regularly, they always kind of had a game where they stunk against a team that they shouldn't have. They're coming off a big win against Colorado. They're 2-0, and me and Tyler's predictions. So Tyler, we'll get started with you. Do they trip up against the Northern Illinois team?
So the first 2 games of the season are kind of a toss-up to me. I'm very confident in what Nebraska's got going on. I'm very excited to see how they're going to continue to build off of, preseason success, if you will. But these next two games, they should win no matter what. So whatever happens against Minnesota and Colorado, you win Northern Illinois and you win Louisiana Tech. So I'm taking Nebraska here just off of because you gotta.
Yeah, these are the games that you got to feast on one way or the other, whether it's this year where we're trying to get back to a bowl game, or even in the near future where you're just trying to use these games as 2-0s. These have got to be wins here.
And I forget the year, but I can't get the memory of the Tanner Lee game where he threw the pick six early in the game and Nebraska ends up losing to Northern Illinois. So they always have a frisky squad, and I like their coach up there. But like Tyler said, these two teams, Northern Illinois and Louisiana Tech, are absolutely games you have to win. And after watching LA Tech this past Saturday, Nebraska should have no problems with them. And Northern Illinois has Rocky Lombardi, who played in that snow game for Michigan State, was their starter. That 9-6 slugfest, was it 2 years ago? I think.
Might have. No. Yeah. Oh, no. 2 years ago, what was East Lansing? It might have been 3 years ago.
3. Okay. Yeah. It's been a while. Because I think Rocky Lombardi's on his 6th or 7th year of college. But Nebraska's seen him a handful of times, so there's a lot of tape out there on him. So, I mean, should be 2 confident dubs for the Skurs.
Hey, I'm right there with you. You know, I wouldn't feel bad about Nebraska's outlook if they lose to Minnesota. The vibes would definitely be bad if they lost to Colorado. But these are the 2 games where if they lose, then it's like, God damn it, are we doing the same thing? Is this what rinse, cycle, repeat? And of course, very early to hit the panic button by any means, but still, just like, God damn it. But now we start to really get into some good teams here. And Michigan's the first one. Big noon kickoff game already announced. So we get them in Memorial Stadium at 11 a.m. Fantastic stuff. I'm hyped for it. I'm just so excited that Nebraska, even though they just won 4 games last year and 3 wins the year before that, the network suits are still excited about putting Nebraska on their marquee time slot. But, Brooke, do they win? Do they have a chance? What's the path here?
So right now, as it stands, we're like a 14.5-point dog. And I think we're able to keep it close for a while. But at the end of the day, there's too much experience there and there's too much skill with that running game. And McCarthy just seems to not turn the ball over. As much as I'd love to say we're going to be in this one at the end, I think Michigan probably – maybe we keep it inside the number, but I would say it's probably a double-digit win for Michigan.
Tyler, any objection there?
I agree. There is a small path to win this game. I don't think Nebraska is going to be able to do that just because how well established Michigan is already coming into this game. Not a lot has changed for them. A ton of things have changed for Nebraska. It's going to be an uphill battle all day. I think in the first half, we keep it close. Like we might be tied going into halftime. And then after that, I think, and nothing to do really with Nebraska. I think that Michigan is just able to execute more things better than Nebraska is at this point. So I'm going to go with Michigan here as well.
Let's just be honest in where these 2 programs are at. Michigan right now is just a cut above us. And that's, it'd be a tough ask for a first-year coach to pull off a win like that. But I will say, if you guys are right in your prediction and Nebraska does win that Minnesota game, I think that Michigan game starts to get a lot more interesting. And
I think that if we win those first 2 games, a lot of Nebraska fans will count that as a season win already because we've already taken those steps to compete with the definitely not top tier programs, but like higher echelon, I guess, if you will, depending on how the games go, if they're like fluky or whatever. But if we go out there and handle business, we beat them by a touchdown, we beat them by 10 points, 3 points. I think that a lot of Nebraska fans might count that as a win, depending on, again, those first 2 games.
You know what it kind of reminds me of is a few years ago when Ohio State came to Lincoln and College Game Day was here, and there was still a sense of optimism and excitement. Now, Nebraska, I think that they had picked up a few wins, might have lost to Colorado. I think Colorado was their only loss or something along those lines where it was obviously a significant enough game for Game Day to be in Lincoln. And then I was so excited. I thought, if there's going to be a time, yeah, it was 2019 because we just played them really tight the year before, even though that whole season went to shit eventually. But we played them pretty tight for a while. So then I thought, all right, well, this is it. We're going to compete with Ohio State and then just get fucking wiped off the floor. And I kind of feel like that's going to be the same kind of vibe here, where it's going to be exciting going into it. Even at 3-1 would be electric, but I don't know if they're ready to compete with the top tier quite yet.
So I have a story about that real quick. I was actually at College game day for that game, and then I went to the game that night. So I stood at College game day for 4 hours, and let me tell you, like, the buzz in Lincoln was crazy. And, like, everything you just said, Brandon, was awesome. And even when we got into the stadium and the tunnel walk happened, we're like, all right, like, this is our moment to, even if we don't win, just play them tough or what have you, just to look good. I think that's all the fan base wanted. And then it was 42-0 at halftime. And, like, that is the earliest I've ever left a Husker game. And it was like a varsity team versus a freshman team. And for me personally, I think that's when I fell off the Scott Frost can get this done.
Yeah, I because I was living in western or eastern Iowa at the time, so I was like, I'm not missing this for the world. So that was the only game I've ever been in Lincoln for. We went to a bar that night, and it was, like you said, just so electric, so exciting. Like I was so excited. I was jumping up and down before the game. I had to pull my Aunt Megan out of a fist fight. It was electric in there. And then the game started, and it just sucked the life out of me in a way that I've never felt before. I was watching it, and they weren't playing the same sport. No. And I just couldn't understand what I was seeing. I don't know if it'll be that bad, just because as a football fan between the Huskers and the Broncos, I've been worn down emotionally to the point where I know how to set my expectations in a more realistic manner. But I don't think we're there yet. Oddly enough, I think if we have – this feels weird. I feel like if we have Scott Frost, we might play him close. We don't win, but it seems like that was kind of his forte towards the end against Michigan was, well, we'll keep it close. I don't know if Matt Rule keeps it close, but tough stuff. Illinois on the road in Champaign. I think they play in Champaign, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty high on Illinois so far this year. I just did my Big Ten preview. I like Double B Brett Blema up there. I like that they added Jim Leonard to their staff. I think that's a huge win. And they've just been trending up. So on the road, I don't know how much of a home field advantage they have, but Tyler, can the Huskers get back on track against the Illini?
I think this is a close game again, but I do think that they lose this game. At Illinois, it's going to be a hard game. Matt Rule isn't a bad coach, but Brett Bielema is very proven, and he's done wonderful things at Illinois already. I think Illinois takes this one, unfortunately.
And kind of like how Brooke had mentioned, in the Michigan slate, they're just in different places where I think Matt Rule's ceiling is definitely higher than anybody at Illinois, but this is year one in the process. So, Brooke, what's the path here?
I just think this is a tough game, like a tough draw for the Huskers, where it's a Friday night game. You're at Illinois. Like you said, not a huge home field advantage, but I think they'll be juiced up for this one being on a Friday night. And I think this is a low-scoring, in-the-trenches game. I think Illinois probably comes out with the W here. I would not be surprised to see Nebraska win this one. I don't think it's, going to get out of hand either way. But like you guys said, Illinois just a half a step ahead of us right now.
I'll give Nebraska this one. I don't think that this feels and this might and kind of the same thing goes for Illinois. There's just the sense of I don't know if it's arrogance or just it's Illinois shouldn't be on the same tier as Nebraska. Like when we came into the Big Ten, it felt like teams like Minnesota and Illinois, those were settled. Right, like you get upset by them every few years or so, but then you get back after it. But I do think that they have a good opportunity to snap some losing streaks against some teams like this year, like Illinois, of course, winning the last 3. So I think that Nebraska can get back on track. It's not going to be a pretty game. I don't think they blow them out by any means, but it's a gritty game, and if they just take care of the football, they're productive on offense, and they get after it on defense. I think that'll be just fine for Nebraska here.
Gotcha.
Northwestern at home. I'm going to be real honest. I don't have any good feelings about Northwestern in any way, shape, or form.
Revenge.
Yeah.
Revenge. That's what this game's about.
Outstanding stuff. Yeah. So I'm pretty confident that Nebraska can pick up the win here against Northwestern.
Yeah, oddly enough, I think this is one of those games that they really get up for in a weird way because of how they kind of set the tone for Nebraska's season going forward last year. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of the players from last year are really going to get up for this game and really show Northwestern what Nebraska football really looks like. So I think this is going to be an easy win for Nebraska.
And this is a pivotal point in the season for me, the Northwestern and Purdue game. If you really truly think Nebraska has a shot to make a bowl game, this is like the Northern Illinois, Louisiana Tech stretch where these 2 games have to be wins, and I think Nebraska wins both of them convincingly. Even if you go 1-1 in this stretch, it would be time to press the panic button for the season as far as making a bowl game. Like, these are just 2 games in the Big Ten Conference with where Northwestern and Purdue are at. We have to win.
I think so too, especially with the new regime in Purdue with Jeff Brom leaving to Louisville. I think that's a huge feasting opportunity. And again, another opportunity where you break a dumb losing streak, back-to-back losses against Purdue. It just feels so dumb. I hate it. It's dumb. Why are you losing to Purdue at all? I do think that they bounce back pretty hard here. Now, they are coming off the bye going into that Northwestern game as well. So whatever issues they have, whether it be in Michigan or that game in Champaign, I feel like this is where you really start to see what this potential can be. So I think this is a great stretch for Nebraska. 2-2. I am gonna circle back here. I don't think Nebraska is this good. I'll give them. I'll give them. I'm like, this is crazy. I mean, I think I'll tell you what. I think they beat either Minnesota or Illinois. I don't know if they get both of those. I don't think they lose both of those. But yeah, because what is that, like 6-1 going into November? I'm like, that feels a bit crazy. So yeah, I'll circle back on that one.
Yeah, and I agree with both of you guys. I think we win Purdue. It's kind of like one of those other must-win games. It's gonna be the way that they play each other though is kind of, oh man, it's always a fist fight, and you love to see that with Big Ten football. But I do think that Nebraska squeaks one out here against Purdue.
And now this next game is interesting because I think Nebraska is going to be a better team, but I also give East Lansing its due as just a tough place to go in and win a football game. I don't think Michigan State's going to have a huge step up. They lose their quarterback and leading wide receiver after spring. So obviously not great vibes for Michigan State here. Brooke, is this year where we finally get one off of Michigan State?
Yeah, this is I'm not very high on Michigan State at all after Thorne and Coleman leaving like that and the way that they did. I think the cupboard's pretty bare up there in East Lansing. I will say probably just because Michigan State is going to have to get up for a couple of these conference games and play some teams tough. They might play us tough for a half or maybe 3/4, but I think this is absolutely a game Nebraska wins, no sweat. So
I think that'd be pretty great, especially as an avid Mel Tucker hater. I'd be very stoked with this. Tyler, is that where you're leaning, or do they get tripped up in East Lansing?
So my gut is telling me to go with Michigan State. I know that they're not going to be a good team. There's just something about playing at Michigan State. I'm going to go with Michigan State here. Unfortunately, I don't know if I truly believe that, but my gut's telling me to go Michigan State here. And I don't think it's going to be that close, unfortunately. Like, it's just going to be one of those games that, Nebraska has them every year. They just go in flat, and I think they lose this game, unfortunately.
And I feel like this stretch here is another one where I think they pick up a win against either Michigan State or Maryland. I don't know which one. I don't think that they lose both of those games. I hope they don't lose both of those games. I do think both of those games are pretty winnable. So I'll give this one to Michigan State just because I feel better about Nebraska beating Maryland at home than beating Michigan State on the road. And I think having them win both of those games is pretty tough, even against a team like Michigan State, where, like I said, I don't think they're necessarily a better team than Nebraska.
No,
but I think this is just where this is the beauty in college football. It's so hard to win on the road against these good teams and these electric environments. So, yeah, I'll take Sparty here. But Brooke, does Nebraska keep this 3-game winning streak going against Maryland, or how do you feel about the Terrapins?
I'm really torn on this one because I would love to pick Nebraska. It's a good spot for them, and it would not surprise me in the least bit if we did win this game. But with Tagovailoa coming back for his 5th, 6th year now, Maryland is going to surprise some people. I think they're an 8-4, 9-3 team this year, and it just feels like they may just have the roster talent against us right now to handle us in Lincoln.
That feels fair. I don't have too much of an objection. They don't bring back a whole lot of starters from last year, so they probably do take a step back. But this could absolutely be a game where they snatch up and beat Nebraska. Tyler, do they bounce back from Sparty?
I think so. So my comments about them coming out flat against Michigan State, I think Matt Rule is that guy that nips that in the bud really quick, and Nebraska comes out firing on all cylinders. They're going to look great. And I think that they take this one against Maryland. I want to say it's going to be easy. I know it's not going to be because, as Brooke said, I do think that they're going to be a good Big Ten team this year. But I do think that they bounce back in a big way against Maryland and take one from them.
And then head to the road, Camp Randall, the next week in Wisconsin.
Birthday
game. Let's fucking go. Okay, I got you. Birthday game, Camp Randall. Tyler, I'll start with you. Can they beat Luke Fickell and the Badgers here?
As much as I would like to believe that they're going to get up and play big for my birthday, they probably don't know I exist. So I'm going to go ahead and take Wisconsin, unfortunately. Yeah.
Is there a path here for Nebraska?
I would think a lot of stuff would have to go right. We'd have to be pretty healthy, and Wisconsin would have to be banged up, in my mind, to go up to Madison for us to beat them. And I don't see a way in year one we get that W unless circumstances change. But I really like the team they have up there at Wisconsin. I think they handle the Skurs.
Yeah, don't forget that Wisconsin running backs are fucking boogeymen. They're always out there slashing up Nebraska defense like it's easy for them. So
I don't like to think about that, but you're absolutely right. If nothing else, it feels like they at least have our number, especially in just these ridiculous starts for the running backs. I'll sell us on Nebraska here. I'll go Nebraska mostly because I noticed that Tyler and I's schedule to this point is identical, and I don't think that's very fun at all. So I'll take Nebraska to pick the upset here. And my big kind of if this is going to happen, I think it's going to be because Wisconsin's very much in the Big Ten title race, and they're kind of thinking that they're a little bit ahead of schedule. They're playing with house money here. They play Minnesota at home next week for possibly an opportunity to win the division and go to the Big Ten title game. So it's not out of the realm of possibility in the brightest timeline for Nebraska to kind of catch them off guard and surprise them. And with 3 losses, they're probably not in the race. So they're really just trying to play the best football that they can. So for that reason, I think they jump out and steal one from Wisconsin here.
Yeah, I don't hate that. I mean, I do think, like, looking at all these games right now, right, it's all just numbers because you things happen during the season that you can't predict. So I think that there is a slight path that you can go through as Nebraska to win this game. I just don't know if it happens this year, unfortunately.
And so Thanksgiving weekend here, Black Friday, Iowa comes to Lincoln for the Heroes game. I would also like to make a quick amendment to a take I've been pretty strong on over the last couple of years. I'll say Nebraska and Iowa is a rivalry.
There we go.
It feels shitty. It feels like such a bad rivalry because, and I think Tyler brought up this point, like they've never been good at the same time.
Yep.
I would also argue that when they're both good, Nebraska clears heavily. So that's why I've always viewed it as not a rivalry. But when you look at the Big Ten, especially going forward with all the new West Coast teams, you know, I wanted Wisconsin to be the rival. They're not. It is what it is. But I do think that they get up more for this Iowa game, and I see that. So I'll give that to them. Just a couple of quick stats I wanted to throw out. Nebraska's fired 2 head coaches that had better winning percentages than Hayden Fry and Kirk Ferentz, who that basically just tells me that those 2 Iowa legendary football coaches are not good enough to be coaches at Nebraska. And I'd also like to point out that Nebraska's had more success specifically in the Rose Bowl in the 21st century. Iowa hasn't won a Rose Bowl since 1959. It had one appearance between 1992 and 2015, and that was only because it was a consolation prize because Michigan State won the conference, went to the playoff. And then Nebraska, they went to the Rose Bowl, despite not having a direct path to the Rose Bowl every year like Iowa does. They played Miami, one of the greatest football teams of all time. We know this. They lost by 23. Iowa's last Rose Bowl appearance, 2016. They played Stanford, a good, not historically great all-time team like Miami was. They lost by 29. So even in the Big Ten's marquee events, Nebraska still clears. But with that said, all that said, there's no way I'm ever picking Iowa to beat Nebraska. It doesn't matter. I think it could be the best Iowa team and the worst Nebraska team, as we've probably seen the last couple of years. Whatever that matchup looks like, I'm never picking Iowa. I'm sorry if that's not objective, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say up to this point with the picks I've made, it feels like Matt Rule needs a statement win, and I feel like this game on Black Friday at home is the one. So I'm going Nebraska, absolutely. Maybe he gets the statement win earlier. I think this is going to be the best Iowa offense we've seen in a while with McNamara there. So, I mean, it's never going to be easy with Iowa. And real quick to touch on your point about it not being a rivalry, I kind of get the point of that just because for a rivalry, it almost feels like there needs to be some bad blood, like Nebraska, Colorado, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Texas, and some of the bigger ones. And we just don't have that yet. And maybe we get that this year.
Yeah, and I definitely think that they hate each other, but it hasn't mattered. Like Nebraska, Oklahoma was always whoever won that game goes to play for a national championship game. Colorado got real aggressive in the 90s, and that's when they, like I said, elevated to Nebraska's level and started nipping them in the bud. And then even Texas, like so some of those big games were you know, I of course I think we think of the 2009 Big 12 championship game still gives us nightmares. That was a really big deal. Texas needed that win to get to the national championship game, even if they needed a 61st second to do it. But I just don't think that there've ever been stakes in this rivalry, and I think that's a bummer. But yeah, you're right. I think we do start to see that maybe even this year, but who knows?
Yeah, and I listened to Matt Rule talk about learning the culture at Nebraska, learning about the people of Nebraska, and if he truly understands what that means, they're going to win against Iowa. There's no way around it. Because that's one game you need to win for Nebraska fans. Even if everybody sits there and says, oh, it's not a rivalry, nobody cares about it, they care. Everybody always cares.
And I'll also add this question to it. because I'm glad I went back and gave Illinois a win, because 10-2 would have felt insane. 9-3 feels super generous. But would you rather win the Iowa game, the Michigan game, or the Minnesota game, knowing that you lose the other two games?
Iowa,
Michigan.
for sure.
Oh, I would say Michigan, just because you're trying to let people know that you're back. Like, here we are. We're on the map again. Maybe it's not going to be a perfect season like we want it to be, but we're here and we're ready to throw punches with the big dogs.
Yeah, it just feels like if we are going to win the Michigan game, the rest of the games on the schedule should be wins. So,
yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with what you said, Tyler. Like, if we could win that game, that would be a national message that we're back.
Yep.
But it's always Iowa for me. It's the rivalry week game. I hate them. They're annoying. Like, I wanted to.
Yeah, I think that's such a unique question, because they each have their own significant meaning. Of course, you beat Minnesota. Well, you start off the year 1-0. You beat Minnesota, who's really had Nebraska's number recently. And then you get underway, and then you set yourself up for a good 4-0 record going into that Michigan game. And then Michigan, of course, is the best team on the schedule. So if you can beat them, I think that's the highest high of having that Fox Noon kickoff game in Lincoln. Everything that we wanted that Ohio State game day to be, and getting that would just be euphoric. But I do think Iowa is the answer, because no matter what else happens throughout the season, I think that game's going to matter pretty significantly for Nebraska, whether it be them knocking on trying to get to a bowl game, or Iowa's probably going to be in the Big Ten West conversation again this year. I think kicking that being the reason they don't make the Big Ten title game is hilarious to me. Doing it in back-to-back years, I think would be well. But if nothing else, it gives us another. It leaves us we leave the season with a good taste in our mouth, and I think at this point in Matt Rule's tenure, I think that's the most important thing, because I feel like I could talk myself off the ledge if we lose to Minnesota and Michigan, where even if we beat one of those two teams and lose to Iowa, it's still kind of it stinks a little bit. I was like, man, I feel like that's one that we should have got.
Absolutely. And for me, looking at the schedule, I think the absolute ceiling is, if everything goes right for Nebraska, it's 10-2. And after that, the swing games in my mind are Minnesota, Iowa, and Maryland. Whatever happens in those games kind of dictate how much above 500 we are. If we're a 500 team, we might lose all three of those. So
right. So as we've kind of crumpled down, I gotta say, I think I still don't feel good about 9-3. That still feels a little crazy for year one. 5 more wins than a year ago feels crazy to me. I guess not as crazy as 10-2 did, as I almost had that on the schedule, but I definitely feel like you guys are going to be a little bit more on the nose here. Whether it is Wisconsin or Maryland, or even both, like Brooke had projected, 7 to 8 wins feels a little bit more likely for Nebraska here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that would be a win. That would be a win. Our goal this year is not a national championship, unfortunately. Our goal is just make it back to a damn bowl game and win that damn bowl game. That's what our goal is this year.
It's hard to imagine feeling bad about a season where we make it to a bowl game and beat Iowa.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the thing for me this year, like the most telling information that you're getting out of the players and the coaches with what people are writing about, is the players are kind of saying now, why not this year? They have the belief. And in years past, it was always just Frost and the coaches saying it. And unless I'm just blanking on, past statements going into the year, it was like the players didn't really feel confident saying that, we're going to win, we're going to do this now. And I think it was Reimers this week saying, why not right now? Like, we have the talent. We feel we have the talent. We just need to go out there and win some games. And that's kind of the message Rule's been feeding to those guys. So I think you'll get a good dose right away with Minnesota of where we're at on the measuring stick.
I think so. But as you guys probably noticed, there's a fourth column here for predictions, as I do feel like there's going to be so many 50-50 games here throughout the season. I figured why not actually put that to the test with the coin toss. So I pulled up a handy dandy flip a coin feature here. So we're just going to go week by week, see what Abe Lincoln has to say. So first game at Minnesota, Thursday night game. Heads is a win, tails is a loss. Let's give that one to Nebraska. Go Big Red. Up next, they're at Colorado. Do they lose to the Golden Buffaloes on the road, or do they bounce back? Heads is a win, tails is a loss. Heads is a win. Nebraska starts 2-0.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
I mean, you're just getting my hopes up.
I know. Hey, it's Honest Abe. He wouldn't lie to us.
Well,
Week 3, Northern Illinois. They do lose that one. So we're back down to earth. We're back down to earth here. Louisiana Tech. I think they're the Bulldogs, if I'm not mistaken. The Bulldogs. Heads 3-1. Granted, this isn't how I would have pictured 3-1.
No, I don't think anyone would have.
But Michigan, Abe's got as good of a chance as anybody of picking Nebraska to upset them. They do. That would be.
Whoa.
I feel like that would be very bittersweet because obviously you beat Michigan, but then you have this. Well, if we could just beaten Northern Illinois, we'd be 5-0 right now. We'd be a top 10 team. But nonetheless, Illinois on the road. Nebraska picks up another win. Abe likes the Huskers.
Come on, Abe.
Northwestern. It would feel pretty Husker-esque to beat Michigan and lose to Northwestern in the same season. That's exactly what Abe thinks is going to happen. Oh, boy, Northwestern. Odds are that would be their only win of the season as well. So that would just sting. But again, we beat Michigan, beat Minnesota, then we beat Purdue. So now we're humming along. Two losses on the year. Up next, we go to East Lansing, Michigan State. Another win.
Good Lord.
Let's go. Hey, and this isn't me. This isn't my saying. This is Honest Abe. We do come back to earth against Maryland. That's a bummer, but it is what it is.
I also love how you have Nebraska 97 highlights not safe for work up there.
Oh shoot, I didn't. Oh man, I didn't know that was there. I was just doing a little web surfing before.
A Rule 34 action.
Let's go. Tails, they lose at Wisconsin. All right, they're starting to fall apart here towards.
That's one of the most realistic picks that this coin has had.
And then Iowa, the Heroes game. Boom. Even Honest Abe doesn't think that.
The coin knows. The coin knows.
Outstanding
what
stuff.
A crazy season that would be if that actually happened.
Absolutely electric. I mean, no notes.
Northern Illinois and then beating Michigan would be something else.
So a 9-3 record based on the coin. I mean, as chaotic as that would be, I think that's a great win. That's a great season.
I agree. That would be such a roller coaster of a season. Like coming off the 2 wins to start the season and then lose to Illinois, then all Nebraska fans are throwing a damn fit. And then you beat Louisiana Tech and Michigan, like one hell of a season.
I mean, and you also got to look at it as 2 conference losses. So with head-to-head wins over Iowa, Wisconsin, and Minnesota, and Illinois, we're probably in the Big Ten championship game.
And in that scenario, yeah, you're right. Beating Iowa, Wisconsin. Yeah. I don't know. Wisconsin, if we lose to Wisconsin, they could still go 10-2. But.
They could, but even if they go 10-2, that's 2 losses in the conference. We have that head-to-head. So they'd have to go. They'd have to go 8-1 in the conference.
I keep thinking that. I forget that the coin picked Northern Illinois.
Perfect. Good season there. Now that we have this figured out, are there? We're not changing this, but are there any games that you look at this and be like, man, if I were doing this again, I'd go the other way?
For me, it's Maryland, just because it's a home game, and we're coming off a good stretch there where I could see the good times keeping rolling. But that's still just a coin flip to me.
Tyler,
would say
anything you'd like to change?
I'm just really nervous about the first two games because they're not easy games to start off the season with.
No.
So those are they're exciting and scary. I'm confident in the boys, but man, is that one hell of a season opener. Minnesota and then at Colorado. Like, geez.
Did I spell Nebraska right on all of these? Nebraska.
I mean, Jesus Christ, what are we doing here?
Dude,
when you look at Nebraska,
it looks so dumb.
Much,
it looks so wrong.
It does, yeah. Same with Michigan. If you look at Michigan too much, it looks stupid.
Yeah, the middle eye that looks like a fraud. Okay.
Yeah, you spelled them right.
Boy, that would be.
We would have to restart the show over.
Yeah, you just sent my mind for a spin there.
Yeah, it's just it doesn't look like a word that's spelled correctly, but yeah, I think I nailed it here. If I did have to switch a game, obviously Wisconsin's probably the big one but even if I leave that on there, Minnesota very much feels like it could go the other way. And that's okay because I think they can still lose their game and have a good season, even if 7-5 with Brooks' schedule there. I think that's a pretty damn good season.
Listen, it wouldn't ruin my bachelor party. It put a real damper on the
vibes would be bad.
There will be some ignorant guys in Colorado if Nebraska wins Thursday night.
Oh my gosh, I forgot that's where you guys are going, right into to enemy territory for that last game.
We're gonna show them how we party before the game starts.
Absolutely,
in Colorado.
Show them how it's done.
We're gonna go give Dion hell.
Absolutely. And then you guys leave Sunday, so it'll be right after they get beat up pretty bad by TCU.
Yep.
Outstanding stuff. Vibes are going to be pretty good here. But last thing, before we wrap up this pregame edition, Luke Doyle came on the show. He was great. We went through the 10 best games for week 1, gave our picks, and now we just need Brooks. So we're just going to go down the list here. LSU and Florida State. It was pretty unanimous LSU. We had a lot of negative things to say about Florida State, and rightly so. Were we right or were we wrong?
Well, not only were you wrong, but you were absolutely wrong because they're going to win this game and then they're going to go on to win the national championship. So
keep saying that.
Hey, Brooke, I think you got a little something in your mouth. It's like a little Seminole's penis in your mouth.
Just because you hate the state of Florida.
They're all fucking trash can people. The state is a bunch of trash can. It's a state that's a trash can. Florida State is in that state, so sure.
Is it Florida the one that has no income taxes?
It's one of them.
Yeah, that's why you get a. I'm done.
All right. Sorry. Didn't mean to press it.
Up next, the Battle of the Carolinas, Drake May and Spencer Rattler. Neutral field, North Carolina, South Carolina. Who wins, Brooke?
I'm going South Carolina. The only position where I feel like North Carolina has a way better team is quarterback. So obviously that means they'll stay in it the whole time, but I think Spencer Rattler will be good enough to get the dub there.
Well, if we're looking at the weekend that Brooke had betting, I think I'm in good shape.
Yeah, week 0 was tough. Mainly because I let Tyler get in my head a little too much.
Week 0, I mean, it barely even counts, right?
But it counts on my bank account, that's for sure.
Yeah. It definitely does. Can attest to that.
I have a feeling this is the game that we can finally all come together on. TCU hosts Colorado. I think TCU takes a step back. I think Colorado takes a step up. I don't think it's enough. Do you think it's enough, Brooke?
I think Colorado could keep it close for a while, but obviously they just don't have the dogs to stay in that fight. So TCU by 17.
That feels like a good number. West Virginia and Penn State.
I think this is a game with programs trending in two opposite directions. So I think Penn State wins this game and wins this game huge.
I think so too. I think I don't feel very good about West Virginia at all. On the flippity flop, I feel outstanding about Penn State. So I don't think that one's particularly close. And if so, it's because of week 1 trust stuff. You got a new quarterback in Drew Allard, but Yeah, I don't think they have to throw the football to win this game by 3 touchdowns.
No.
Up next, Florida and Utah. As of right now, still up in the air whether or not Cam Rising plays or not. I have a belief that he will, so I take Utah comfortably. If he doesn't, I definitely think that changes things. But
and here's the problem for me is I firmly believe Cam Rising won't play just because I know medicine is advanced nowadays and guys are coming back from ACL tears sooner rather than later. But from his comments in the press, he doesn't sound confident himself that he's going to play. And he tore it in January, and we're barely 8 months removed from that. So the real question to me is, do I think Graham Mertz is good enough to win on the road at Utah? Which I'm going to say, yeah. I say this is a weird one in which you catch Utah with some guys hurt. I think Florida shocks them.
That would be pretty shocking to me. I think top to bottom, Utah's a better team. But yeah, the quarterback play plays a huge difference. And if it's whoever QB2 is for Utah versus Graham Mertz down the stretch, I think that's a great point. So you and Tyler both love Florida there. So that's
all right. Hold on, I was going to mention that. The only reason I picked Florida is to make sure that Utah loses. That's the only reason I picked Florida. Wait, the other way around.
On that Florida-Utah game, Utah's second string is also hurt, so it's either Rising or their third quarterback.
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah,
that's bummer. That's tough.
Yeah, when you told me that Cam Rising wasn't going to play, I was like, "All right, what are you talking about?"
If he does,
I remember he tore his ACL. He tore his ACL. I'm like, "Whoa!" I totally forgot about that.
I did forget about that. Well, yeah, and it was in the Rose Bowl, so like it wasn't like the next week he had a game to play. Oh, well, I hadn't thought about Cam Rising since January, oddly enough, until like 2 weeks ago.
I can't believe he's still playing.
Yeah. I feel like people don't realize that. And even if he does play, it's like he uses his feet so much, he's going to be a shell of himself, and I don't think it'll go well for him. But
yeah, that's not nothing. Tennessee and Virginia, Battle of the Oranges.
Tennessee by 50.
Yeah, I think very similar to them and West Virginia as far as Virginia goes. They're just not very good. Washington and Boise State. Tyler was pretty bold here. He said Boise State's. Are you going to be as bold, or how are you feeling?
Tyler's smoking on something else. So it's going to be Washington and Washington fairly easily.
Yeah, I agree. UTSA in Houston. I did my Big 12 preview after this we did our picks, so I feel a lot better about Houston than I did beforehand. How do you feel about this game?
I've been really high on UTSA for the past couple years, and they have Frank Harris back. And if you think Houston is going to win, you are dog wrong. It's going to be Frank Harris lighting them up all day.
Indiana and Ohio State. There's no way. I mean, it's anything other than Ohio State, is there?
I think Ohio State's going to win, and they'll probably cover. But I'm really interested to see how those young quarterbacks do and how they look. So.
And then Nebraska, Minnesota. We went over this. It went Minnesota. Unless you wanted to change it, you have an opportunity to change it here.
No, I think Nebraska keeps it close. It's going to be a dogfight, but I think at home on a Thursday night, Minnesota probably gets us.
Yeah, I'm not too far off with you. Luke had predicted 31-20. What has to happen for that to go right?
I would think we have to win the turnover battle, and we have to stop the run. If we stop the run, there's a really great shot we win that game. Obviously, Sims and the running backs have to take care of the ball. And that's not, out of the question. I really am sitting here wanting to pick Nebraska, but my gut's telling me that it's going to be Minnesota close.
I'm right there with you. So that's a good week one. Which of these games are you the most excited about going forward?
I mean, it has to be Florida State, LSU, right? Because for both of those teams, it has not national championship, but CFP in quotations. Feels like Florida State has to either beat LSU or Clemson to get a look. And LSU, if they lose right away, that means they have to beat Bama, and they have Texas A&M on their schedule too. So, which is very possible, but I just think at home, Jordan Travis, give me the Sevens.
I think so. I think that's where I'm at. I probably would say Utah and Florida just because of the fact that it's capping off the first Saturday of college football, and the vibes are going to be so immaculate. I feel like some of that momentum will run out before Sunday night. But I mean, you can't go wrong with all these games. I'm just so juiced.
Definitely excited. My eyes will be glued to a TV all day Saturday.
Oh, perfect. Well, that's about all I had far as Cornhusker connection stuff goes. We got a lot else going on. Anything else you'd like to add before we head out?
Go Skurs.
Go Skurs.